Layla smoothed the fabric of her simple blue gown as she sat at the corner table, watching her cousin Natalie twirl in a designer wedding dress that probably cost more than Layla's entire wardrobe. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across the ballroom floor where couples danced in perfect rhythm to the string quartet. She sipped her champagne slowly, making it last. "You should be out there dancing," her Aunt Patricia commented as she passed by, her diamond earrings catching the light. "Such a shame you came alone." Layla forced a smile, enjoying watching everyone. Her aunt's pitying look said everything before she drifted away to mingle with the other guests. Layla had heard it all before, whispers about how she was married to her career at 32, how she needed to put herself out there more. She was proud of her work as a marine biologist. But moments like these made her question her choices. Across the room, she noticed a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit, speaking with the groom. Something about him seemed different from the other polished guests. He didn't laugh too loudly or gesture dramatically. Instead, he observed, much like she did. "That's Adrian Blackwood," whispered her cousin Thomas, appearing beside her with a plate of hors d'oeuvres. "Runs that tech investment firm that's been in all the business magazines. Worth billions, they say. Rarely attends these kinds of events." "Why is he here then?" Layla asked, intrigued despite herself. "Old friend of Jacob's from university days, before the money." They stayed close. The music shifted to a slower melody, and couples paired off. Layla felt a familiar ache as she watched families and lovers embrace on the dance floor. She was considering slipping outside for some air when she felt a presence beside her table. "The problem with these events," said a warm, deep voice, "is that the most interesting people are usually sitting alone." Layla looked up to find Adrian Blackwood standing there, his eyes a surprising shade of amber in the warm light. Unlike most wealthy men she'd encountered, there was no arrogance in his expression, only genuine interest. "Would you care to dance?" he asked, extending his hand. Conversations paused, heads turned. Layla felt her cheeks warm under the sudden attention. "I'm not very good," she admitted. His smile deepened, revealing a small dimple. "Perfect." "Neither." "Am I?" As his hand gently took hers, Layla felt something shift in the air around them, as if the universe had suddenly decided to rewrite her story. The string quartet began a waltz as Adrian guided Layla onto the polished floor. His hand rested lightly at her waist, respectful but steady. She felt the stares of everyone around them, but found herself caring less with each passing moment. "They're all watching us," Layla murmured, trying not to count steps in her head. "Them," Adrian replied, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "I've been watching you all evening," her eyebrow raised. "What?" Sounds slightly concerning. He laughed, a genuine sound that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. "I meant that respectfully. You're the only person here who isn't trying to impress someone. Maybe I just don't know how," she countered. "Or maybe you don't need to." He guided her through a gentle turn. "Oh, yes. I noticed you earlier explaining something to that little girl in the purple dress." Your face lit up completely. Layla smiled, remembering. "My second cousin Emma. She asked about sea turtles after seeing my tattoo. I'm a marine biologist. That explains it." "Explains what?" "Why you seem more at home discussing ocean creatures with a child than mingling with this crowd." The music continued as they moved across the floor with surprising ease. There was something comfortable about Adrian's presence that made conversation flow naturally. "So what does a billionaire tech investor do at events like this, besides rescuing wallflowers?" she asked. "Mostly avoid conversations about money and business proposals." His expression turned thoughtful. "And look for people who don't already know who I am." "Is that why you asked me to dance? Because I seemed oblivious to your importance?" "Perhaps. Or perhaps I recognized another observer." He smiled. "People like us notice details others miss." As the song ended, Adrian surprised her by asking for another dance, then another. They spoke about her research in coral reef restoration, his passion for sustainable technology, their shared love of obscure documentaries. When they finally left the dance floor, he asked if she'd join him on the terrace, under the night sky, away from prying eyes. Layla found herself sharing stories she rarely told anyone about her parents' difficult divorce, her struggle to secure research funding, her love for the ocean that had saved her during dark times. "I've never told anyone that," she admitted after sharing a particularly personal story. Adrian's expression was gentle. "Sometimes it's easier to open up to strangers." "We still strangers?" she asked. He looked at her for a long moment. "No, I don't believe we are." As midnight approached, Layla realized something had fundamentally changed. What had begun as a simple dance had somehow opened a door neither of them had expected to find. He called again, her roommate Josephine asked, eyes widening as Layla ended the call. 3 weeks had passed since the wedding, and Adrian had been nothing if not persistent. Coffee dates turned into dinners, and long walks along the harbor, discussing everything from climate policy to childhood memories. "We're having dinner tomorrow night," Layla confirmed, trying to contain her smile. At his penthouse, Josephine wiggled her eyebrows suggestively. "The plot thickens." "It's not like that," Layla protested, though her cheeks warmed. "He wants to show me his collection of marine photography. Apparently he commissioned an underwater series last year." "Sure, the art collection excuse. Classic." Josephine flopped onto the couch. "But seriously, aren't you worried about the differences? He lives in a world of private jets and galas. You get excited about secondhand bookstores and takeout." The question hit a nerve. Layla had been trying to ignore the voice in her head. Asking the same thing, her phone buzzed with a message from her cousin Natalie. "Careful with Adrian. Men like him date outside their circle for fun, not forever. Don't want to see you hurt." Similar warnings had come from her aunt, Patricia, and even her mother during their weekly call. "Darling, it's wonderful. He's interested, but guard your heart. These wealthy men have different expectations." When Layla arrived at Adrian's building the next evening, the doorman greeted her by name and escorted her to a private elevator. The sleek penthouse with its panoramic city views should have intimidated her, but Adrian welcomed her in jeans and a simple sweater, barefoot and making pasta in the kitchen.
Ow.
"I hope you don't mind," he said. "I thought cooking would be nicer." "Than another restaurant where people stare and take photos?" The normalcy of the gesture touched her, but doubts lingered. During dinner, she finally voiced her concerns. "Everyone seems to think I should be suspicious of your interest in me," she said carefully. "That men of your position don't typically form serious attachments to women who shop at department stores." Adrian set down his wine glass. "Does it matter what's typical?" "It matters if they're right." Silence stretched between them before he spoke again. "My whole life, people have had expectations about who I should be, who I should care about. Before the money, I wasn't good enough for certain families. After it, suddenly everyone wanted to be close to me, but few wanted to know me." His eyes met hers. "You've never once asked about my net worth or mentioned my company. Instead, you debate with me, challenge me, make me see the world differently." "That doesn't answer my question," she pressed. "Doesn't it?" He reached for her hand. "What others think is typical doesn't dictate what's possible, Layla." His sincerity was compelling, yet Layla couldn't silence the whispers completely. Something told her that, despite his genuine interest, the road ahead would test them both in ways neither could anticipate. Rain pounded against the windows of Adrian's car as they sat in awkward silence after leaving the charity gala. What should have been a simple evening had turned complicated when his ex-girlfriend Victoria had appeared, dripping in diamonds and barely concealed contempt. "She seemed nice," Layla said finally, her attempt at humor falling flat. Adrian sighed. "Victoria has always excelled at making her feelings known without saying a word. The backhanded compliments had been artful. How refreshing to meet someone so natural," Victoria had said, eyeing Layla's department store gown. "Adrian always did have diverse interests. She fits in that world," Layla said quietly. "I felt like an imposter all night." Adrian pulled the car to the side of the road and turned to face her. "Is that what's bothering you? Is that you don't fit with those people? Because I don't either, Layla. I never have. But you navigated effortlessly. You know which fork to use and which investors to charm." "I learned to play the game," he said, his voice tight. Doesn't mean I enjoy it. They sat listening to the rain before Adrian spoke again, softer this time. My father was a factory worker. He died when I was 14, leaving my mother with 3 children and 2 jobs. I built my company from a tiny apartment with second-hand computers. He looked at his hands. Some days I still feel like that scared kid, certain someone will discover I don't belong. The vulnerability in his confession caught Layla off guard. She'd assumed his confidence was innate, not a carefully constructed shield. Why didn't you tell me before? She asked. The same reason you downplay your research accomplishments? Sometimes it's easier to let people see only what they expect. 3 days later, Adrian visited Layla's research lab for the first time. He listened intently as she explained her work on coral restoration, asking thoughtful questions and showing genuine interest in her colleagues' projects. Professor Ramirez, her mentor, pulled her aside afterward.
Oh.
That young man looks at you the way my Eduardo looked at me for 42 years, he said with a knowing smile. Like you're the answer to a question he's been asking his whole life. That evening, walking along the harbor as the sun set, Layla realized something had shifted. The whispers and warnings seemed less important now. What mattered was this: beneath his wealth and her reservations, they were 2 people who had found something rare, someone who saw them completely. What are you thinking? Diana asked, noticing her contemplative expression. That I've been so worried about our differences, I almost miss seeing all the ways we're the same. 6 months after their first dance, Layla stood on the deck of Adrian's yacht, no longer intimidated by such luxuries but not quite comfortable with them either. The small gathering of friends celebrated the launch of their joint venture, Foundation combining her marine expertise and his business acumen to develop technologies for ocean conservation. 2 unlikely partnerships, Professor Ramirez toasted, raising his glass with a knowing smile. Josephine nudged Layla. When you said you were dating a billionaire, I expected you'd be shopping on Fifth Avenue, not convincing him to fund coral nurseries. He didn't need much convincing, Layla replied, watching Adrian across the deck as he discussed implementation strategies with her research team. We're both stubborn about the things that matter. They had weathered much in those 6 months. Tabloid speculation about their relationship had been hurtful at first, gold digger in midlife, crisis among the kinder headlines. Adrian's board members questioned his distraction, while her academic colleagues worried about conflicts of interest. Yet together, they had found their balance. He had simplified some aspects of his life, rediscovering the joy in ordinary experiences. Farmers, markets on Sunday mornings, community theater performances, hiking trails without security details. She had grown more confident in upscale settings while remaining firmly grounded in her values. When everyone had gone below deck, Adrian joined her at the railing. The sunset painted the water in shades of gold and pink. Have I told you today that you've completely upended my life? He asked, wrapping an arm around her waist. Is that a complaint? She teased. The opposite. He turned to face her fully. Before you, I had success, but not fulfillment. I had associates, but few true friends. I had everything and nothing simultaneously. Very poetic, she smiled, but she understood. Her own life had transformed in ways she hadn't expected. I have something for you, he said, reaching into his pocket. It's not what you think. He handed her a small wooden box. Inside lay a simple key. What's this for? She asked. A cottage I bought on that little island where we saw the sea turtle hatchlings. It has good access to the reef, a small lab space, and room enough for 2 people who still value their independence. Her breath caught. It was perfect, not a grand gesture of diamonds or extravagance, but one that honored who they were, together and separately. Are you asking me to move in with you? Part-time at least? I'm asking for a beginning, he said simply. It's one that belongs just to us, not to our different worlds. As twilight deepened around them, Layla looked at the key in her palm, small. Ordinary, yet holding extraordinary possibility. Yes, she said, closing her fingers around it, to our beginning. What had started with a dance had evolved into something. Neither could have predicted a partnership of equals. Well, not despite their differences, but because of the understanding those differences had taught them. That true connection transcends circumstance and love when genuine, creates its own path forward.